In this day of stay at home and work from home, home has never meant more than it does today. Whether you're looking to buy, rent, or build your new home, now is the time to get going. Gittins & Gittins real estate agents are here to take you to that place of your dreams. Let us take you home. We help you find that rental to rest along the way, or journey with you to find your home destination. Investors and commercial enterprises too, call us and we'll walk the distance to place your business in just the right location. Owners, leave the headaches to us. We'll find your tenants or buyers while you stay at home. We'll even manage your property at your bidding. Anything real estate, come home to Gittins & Gittins Real Estate. Call us at 760-3280 or 747-1220 or visit us at 16 Fifth Street in Woodbrook.
We feel that about 50% of women who are infertile or subfertile, endometriosis is the underlying factor. So it used to play a role.
Half of the women who present with infertility problems will turn out to have
an underlying endometriosis as a cofactor affecting their fertility.
WESN.
Why is it that for one side to be right, the other side has to be wrong? And for one side to be wrong, we must assume that the other side is automatically right. I'm sure Michael Small, this is Talking Point here on WSND Content Capital. And that question bugs me because perhaps it is a low-level example, a minor clue with regards to how the human brain works, how societies think as a collective, which is an interesting thing to say because while, you know, you could go into science fiction about or dystopian fiction with regards to collective thinking and consensus and hive minds and children of the corn and all kinds of stuff. But the reality, of course, is we are not, at least not yet. There are such things as brain implants, but we are not yet connected in any sort of tangible way. Our connection is more intangible, cultural, mental, and to some extent, assumed, presumed, or felt, rather than being something that is able to be measured and counted in any real significant way. So, as we as a people, as a population, and for all populations, the ebbs and flows of what the majority is thinking, it's very interesting because more often than not, it's not due to perfect information. It's not due to perfect and the most accurate levels of reasoning, judgment, based on the best hypothesis and the best evidence. It's kind of just what we think. And I guess to some extent that's why we oversimplify things, because it's easier, right? When you have to deal with everybody's own agendas and needs and wants and limitations with regards to things like time, how much time they have in a day, how much mental capacity they have left after dealing with maybe a sick parent, sick children, a boss that they don't like, a workplace that might not necessarily be the most pleasant place to be every day. The commute, I don't know what it was this weekend, but for some reason the driving stood out, not to me, but to the other people in the car. So at least I know I'm not entirely crazy when I kind of wonder what's going on our nation's highways. So all of these things, you know, you go through your day, you get affected, you're not necessarily at your best. It's not necessarily everybody's job to look into national issues and try to find a solution. Despite the fact that we are a democracy, which technically means that informally, we do have some level of responsibility to participate in the finding of the solution to our problems. So we outsource. We outsource essentially, even though, yes, we vote for political parties that are nationals, that are made up of members of the community, we're basically saying, you all deal with it. And then now we want to take shortcuts, because again, we don't have the time. So if one side, if we perceive them to be wrong, the other side must be right, apparently. Or if one side we prefer and we perceive as right, the other side must be wrong. Now, what makes it easier here in Trinidad, as opposed to the United States, where at least they still have the veneer of dealing with issues on certain levels of ideological reasoning. That is to say, this is the party of conservatism. Conservatism means X, Y, and Z, even though on some level the politics flipped all that on its head. There's still some kind of underlying philosophy of how we approach things. We want to conserve. We don't want radical change, right? That comes with pros and cons. Slow to change, that might be necessary. Not necessarily going to change for the sake of change and overturn anything unnecessarily. It all depends, of course, how you manage things. Same thing with liberalism. Quick to respond to needed change, sometimes changes too much, maybe a little too far. So we don't have that. We don't have that to inform us what our party stands for. Our political parties stand for everything. That's how we can get one party says dollar for dollar, basically. We'll match whatever you pay for tertiary education. And the next party says gate. We'll just pay the whole thing. Realize that, technically speaking, both parties are for the same issue. When you had the THA elections, right? When you had the PNM and the then PDP, basically both being for Tobago autonomy. There was no debate there. Everybody's for everything. Everybody's for everything that sounds nice. Right? Now in the States, that's very different. One side is for, the other side is against, and they tend to be very strict about that. They'll figure out a way to justify the against to whatever their opponents say for. We do that in Parliament. But if we believe that something is popular, everybody's for it. No one has an original idea. So we can't really take our cues from any sort of guiding philosophy that they provide. But we still do some of the same motions where, well, these people are obviously wrong, therefore the other people are right. That's what's going on right now with regards to our two political parties in Parliament. Because one of the other things is, if I believe someone to be right, then I could never disagree with them for some strange reason. This mainly, I don't know to what extent this happens with people in their everyday life, right? But this mainly happens when you are picking sides on a wider scale. So if this is your party, if party X is your party, party X could do no wrong. They could never do any wrong. Because then, if they do one wrong, then you question your whole life with regards to this party, or maybe everything that they did was wrong. As opposed to having the confidence, having the judgment, having the intelligence to sort through all the details and say, well, they were right here and they were wrong there. Because at the end of the day, they're just humans. They can't be right all the time and wrong. They're not necessarily going to be wrong all the time. But we assume, well, for them to be our chosen party, they must be right all the time. This is what you're seeing right now in our politics, where we just had an unpopular government. The government was allowed to kind of get away with almost everything until the final moment when the election was called and they were voted out. That is the one time where our work-adverse population will step up, and not even all of them, just a little over half, and do what they need to do in something important with regards to their participation in the democratic process. I also voted, I'm just saying. So, we have the, oh well, we had this unpopular government, we voted them out, we voted these people in. Why? Well, they're wrong, so these people have to be right. And since we have thus deemed them to be right, they must be always right, they can be never wrong. Meanwhile, the people we voted out must always be wrong, they can be never right. And then, because the people who must always be wrong, they could be never right, are saying that, quote, these developments raise serious national questions about whether constitutional freedoms are being balanced with sufficient transparency, accountability, and proportionality, end quote. Because the people who must always be wrong are saying this, it can't be right. They must always be wrong. Therefore, the other side must always be right. Even if some people might be wondering about being essentially ruled now under state of emergency. This is one of the steps to get there, to get away from democracy and towards dictatorship. It's not that I'm saying it because the UNC did it. If the PNM did it, I would say the same thing, especially if the PNM did back-to-back state of emergencies. No, regardless of who does it, this is why you don't do it so freely, so frequently, so easily. This is why you don't do it. You could be the best, most heralded leader of democracy of all time, from Washington to Bush Sr., to Obama, to Clinton, to Carter, to Reagan, you know, whichever side of the conservative versus liberalism debate you stand with regards to politics, whatever is your ideal of leader, you don't do it so easily, anything that suspends the rights and freedoms of the population in any significant way. Like, say, the right to protest. You don't do it so easily because you know that is the first step. It doesn't matter who you are. Jesus could be president, and he would have to have the same concerns. Because at the end of the day, you have to realize that you are affecting the fabric of your nation, not just today, but for all time in the future. You present a scenario once tolerated, it becomes acceptable not just now, but down the line. But also, there is no guarantee that you will always be in control. When a certain third party popped up in Germany, the larger two parties thought they were in control. And then someone had a bright idea as a temporary solution. They didn't necessarily think this was going to be any sort of long-term endeavor. We'll just get this third-party guy to form the government because we're too split. No one can get a majority. So we'll make some sort of alliance, put him in power as a placeholder. That man was Adolf Hitler. And the machinations of the leaders of two larger political entities with more national support in that same election that put him into power didn't realize that they lost control. One of the tools that he utilized to rip control out of their hands, emergency powers. I'm not saying the current government is that bad. I'm saying they need to not underestimate the fact that they cannot always guarantee that they will remain in control, that things will go no further, that no other wild card event could come and upset the apple cart. Because ultimately, human beings don't live forever. Political parties do not stay in power forever. What you do has to stand the test of time, must be robust enough that it's not going to leave any loopholes or cracks, chinks in the armor for someone down the line who might not even show up yet, who might not even be on the national stage, to find a way to exploit, to find a way to manipulate. Because I already established the fact that far too many people, they want to kind of take shortcuts and not commit themselves to fully understand the best they can what's going on, why things are important. Even the residents in Beetham, among other hotspots, in a different story, they told one of the media houses, look, we feel for the situation, but we have other priorities than protesting the Joshua Samaru shooting. We have to survive. I mean, one of the issues with climate activism is everyone who is a fervent believer of it thinks, oh my gosh, it's such an imminent threat. What they don't necessarily understand is a lot of people are just trying to survive today, and they literally do not have the capacity to worry about tomorrow. And that's the same truth for some of the people in our population. The question is, to what extent is that formula that they're using to assess that situation the most accurate? Because tomorrow might not be as far along as you think, or as far away as you think. A lot of people think such issues, that's not affecting me now. If it affects me, if ever at all, it will be so far down the line, I don't need to worry about it now. But something like this, not necessarily. You never know how things can kick off. So, back to the original question. Why is it that we come to the oversimplification of, well, for one side to be wrong, the other side has to be right. For one side to be right, the other side has to be wrong. Because here comes the opposition now, and technically this is their job. Like, here's the thing. Here's the thing. We have a political system. The person with the most votes becomes government. The person with the second most votes usually comes leader of the opposition, right? Now, what the country is basically saying is, well, we thought the PNM did such a bad job, we don't even want to listen to them as opposition, we don't trust them, generally speaking, right? Especially certain people who were key figures in the previous cabinet, we don't like them, we don't trust them. That's what a lot of people essentially are expressing. Here's the problem. When we ever had a chance to have a third party, a third option, we always think the third option is, well, to be in government. What about opposition? Does nobody consider the long-term consequences of literally saying, oh, no, we're going to complain about only having these two yahoos every election. Every election, well, I don't know who to vote. It's bad, it is bad. Right? This is what most of the people in the middle say, diehard supporters of party X or Y. They say, we like neither of you, technically speaking, you both suck. That said, no one cares to actually try to get a third option so that you're not in a situation where the loser of the last election is now the opposition, because the opposition is supposed to be the check on the government. You're saying you have so little faith in the party that is in the opposition spot, but yet you did nothing to try to get a viable alternative for the opposition party. You're content to complain about the same two guys, the same two parties. You're content to say, I don't like mustard and I don't like ketchup. What about barbecue sauce? Get that out of here. I don't need that. I am content with ketchup and mustard but I thought you said you don't like it. Listen, I don't have to make sense. You just have to accept my nonsense. Garlic sauce, get that out of here. I don't need that. I have my ketchup and my mustard, but you don't like them. And so, we don't like them, but yet as a nation, we believe in them somehow more than anything else or anybody else. Why? Well, part of it is, it's easy. You take shortcuts, so it's easier to just say, we'll just stick with what we know, despite the fact that somewhere around 30 to 50% of us complain incessantly about the lack of choice, about the lack of job performance, about the corruption on both sides of the aisle. Yeah, it's around that probably. That's my guesstimation, to some extent based on the election numbers. A lot of people complain about the PNM and the UNC. They don't actually care about getting a viable alternative because they think, oh, well, it's about who's in government. No, what about who's in opposition? Because whether you like it or not, first of all, the UNC is the government, right? We are not supposed to be hoping that they fail. That said, they're doing whatever they're doing. That's them. That's a them problem. Ditto for the PNM. If you think that we're going to be better off if the PNM fails, I have some bad news for you. Because that only encourages a lack of accountability on government side. You think that can't happen? Because somehow the government is made up of saints and the opposition is only made up of sinners? The partnership was not voted back in office for a reason. Just remember that. Everybody who says, we've been under PNM rule for however many years and decades. Now, you could say that there was funny business on some of the elections, but I have a hard time believing that it was only because of funny business the non-PNM party lost all those elections now. Some of the races have been quite close. Makes you wonder if A games were on, if one party decided, you know, maybe we should, instead of doing the same old nonsense that everybody does, make the same old mistakes with regards to leadership, communication, governance, policy, have the same old corruption. Maybe if we actually, I don't know, try to do the job, like if it was a job, not like if it was a title of nobility that we feel entitled to by divine right, because I am who I am, therefore I deserve to be in the halls of power. Away from you peasants. Yeah, if you actually tried to select and were able to select people who are basically looking at themselves as the nation's first servants, you know, maybe we would see competition based on ability and merit as opposed to competition based on whatever the hell it is they compete on. I saw something interesting. I can't remember if it was what politician this came from. But basically the quote is, if you take $500 from one person and give $100 to 5 people each, you lose 1 vote but gain 5. Now, is that better for the economy? Not necessarily, because you're just taking someone's money to giving it to other people. And that's government redistribution of wealth in a nutshell. Although, as we've seen, that is not necessarily the most sustainable political ideology. Politicians don't care about sustainability and long-term planning. They care about the next election. Despite the fact that half the time, they mess things up so much in the long term, they will run into an election that they just can't win or they shouldn't win. PNM was short-sighted in almost everything they did, despite even with regards to legacy projects that were supposed to be long-term. And you get away with your tricks, it works only so far. You won 2 elections and you lost the 3rd one. The UNC doesn't look any more long-sighted than the PNM, by the way. And in some ways, potentially more short-sighted, in some ways. So why is it one side has to be right and the other side has to be wrong? 100%. There's no leeway for in between. Because at the end of the day, as I said, the PNM is the opposition. This is technically their job. Why? We don't want to hear from you. The thing is, we're supposed to be hearing from them. This is the sad reality. We're complaining. We don't like what they have to say. But technically speaking, it is technically their job to say something. The mistake is not disagreeing with what they're saying. The mistake is telling them to not speak. The mistake is telling them that we don't want to hear anything you have to say. What we're supposed to be saying is, hold on, what is your reasoning for doing this? What is your justification? And if we don't like it, you all need to come better. In part because you want to win the next election, you can't be on this level. Now, the opposition leader is in an interesting and precarious situation. On one hand, I don't think she was central to the last government. On the other hand, she was still technically part of the last government, didn't really speak up much about things. We have seen what happens to dissidents, albeit in the other party. We've seen what can happen. And she has to be opposition leader at a time when there are serious ethical considerations with regards to governance. And she has to weigh in on it. If she doesn't, she will be an absentee opposition leader, similar to how our prime minister is an absentee prime minister. Yes, she is. I don't think there's any way to really justify disagreeing with that statement. If you do, and if you think you have a reason to do so, and not just a statement that you do so, you can call in later and let me know what that reasoning is. You have to have reasoning. You have to have an argument. You have to have a line of thinking that we could then discuss. My line of thinking is, we haven't seen her participate in any sort of press conference or public speaking opportunity where she takes questions from the media freely. Her predecessor technically did, a lot more frequently than her, to the point where he looks like an open book. His levels of transparency far exceeds, accountability far exceeds. Did Dr. Rowley have great levels of accountability and transparency? No, he did not. His levels were low, but his low levels far exceeds her levels. By default, if you don't want to participate in the game, you can't get a score. If your score is 0, you are always going to be underneath everybody else that has a score. So the opposition leader now, currently, however, she has an uphill battle. How many people don't trust her? How many people don't believe in her? But she still has to speak. She still has to be present. She still has to say something, otherwise she'll be derelict in her duty. The question is not whether she should speak or not. What is the merit behind what she's saying? Not to assume that she's 100% wrong all the time just because. Is she right or wrong based on the merits of her reasoning? Sometimes the inconvenient truth is people we don't like, we disagree with, they have something to say that we should not ignore. Whether or not it is in its final form or we need to polish it ourselves, that's besides the point. That is a possibility. Maybe there are certain things that the opposition says it's not 100% correct. Maybe it's only 51%. We could polish it a little bit more to get closer to the truth, to get a more accurate statement, if we put any effort. But we don't want to put any effort. We want to make simple, easy decisions. Sean, forget all that effort. Look, it's simple. They lost the election, they're wrong. They won the election, they're right. Why we gotta complicate things? Why? Because democracy was not made to be run under a state of emergency. That's why. And you might think, what's the big deal? I think people underestimate the potential seriousness of not being able to protest the government. We take that for granted because we don't even want to protest 99% of the time, it seems. That's a very, very easy way. You could make a population complacent in many different ways. I guess the PNM kind of made us to some extent complacent because we never really felt the need to push ourselves on any issue. Whereas this government might seemingly make it seem as though in order to push yourself on an issue, the effort is too great. Why bother? Well, it's not just the state of emergency. Have you seen so many things that's been happening, slowly bubbling to the surface? Situations with Cal, situations with WASA that I haven't even gone into. Apparently, social media influencers are great hires. Situations with the PSA, still not getting their situation sorted out. Promises unkept. Situation with the maxi taxis. We'll get into that after the break. Stay tuned. Shawn Michael Small, Talking Point, WESN. We'll be right back after this. After this.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
In this day of stay-at-home and work from home, home has never meant more than it does today. Whether you're looking to buy, rent or build your new home, now is the time to get going. Gittins & Gittins real estate agents are here to take you to that place of your dreams. Let us take you home. We help you find that rental to rest along the way or journey with you to find your home destination. Investors and commercial enterprises too, call us and we'll walk the distance to place your business in just the right location. Owners, leave the headaches to us. We'll find your tenants or buyers while you stay at home. We'll even manage your property at your bidding. Anything real estate, come home to Gittins & Gittins Real Estate. Call us at 760-3280 or 747-1220 or visit us at 16 Fifth Street in Woodbrook.
Are you driven, ambitious, and ready to earn? WESN, the content capital, is expanding, and we're looking for dynamic media sales executives to join our team. Sell powerful advertising solutions across television, digital, and social media platforms, and help brands tell their story. If you have strong communication skills, a passion for sales, and the drive to succeed, join WESN today. Send your CV to marketing@wsncc.com or WhatsApp 6861662 and start building your future.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
I'm back here and talking about the WSN cotton capsule. One of the things that have come up today, we knew this from over the weekend. The maxi taxi operators are taking a 3-day strike. They are withholding their services because they have grievances. Now, I think one of the issues that this is bringing up is the fact that perhaps not everybody was necessarily aware of how the maxi taxi operators felt. And I do wonder if we are far too accustomed to being in a situation where things aren't a problem until they're a problem. And we tolerate a lot. And we're not concerned with things. That's a small thing. Why are you burning for? Don't bother me with that. So part of what I wonder is, are the issues that the maxi taxi operators facing, is it that we didn't necessarily want to listen? But what might be more pertinent is it that potentially the government didn't necessarily want to listen? Because at times, look, you're making money, right, we'll just kind of do this and put this Band-Aid here and do some laissez-faire thing there and do some informal fix there. But to what extent is that good enough, right? These are some of the things that, I'll try and go through both daily newspapers, but one of the things that the maxi taxi operators are concerned about is illegal competition. Unlicensed PH vehicles and white buses operating on maxi taxi routes. There are other concerns like request to increase the speed limits, request to use certain routes or roads reserved for PTSC, issues like outstanding payments owed to school transport operators. From what I understand, it's something like $10 million, which seems like small money, but then when you actually think, well, I guess split up amongst the operators for the year, from what I understand. And I guess one of the things is then when you add on the fact that tutors saying, oh, and they also haven't paid our back pay. Again, you're like, where's the money? You said you're finding money, right? I don't know, maybe we should have listened to the funny guy, the funny looking guy on TV when he said at the end of the day, while you could complain about how the PNM managed or mismanaged the economy, you still have to give some account to the fact that the revenue just isn't there to throw money around willy-nilly to solve all the problems easily. I don't know, maybe you should have listened to the funny guy on TV that said things like that. One of the interesting things, of course, is with regards to the illegal, there's also other things, better arrangements for NIS contributions, radio permits issues, safety and security concerns. I don't necessarily think that has specific things that they have an issue with that they want to see change, as opposed to they want to see the government do better in that area, which that might not be quite as fair, because when you're protesting on such an open-ended thing, it's not necessarily something that has easy and obvious avenues to rectify. That's probably one of the reasons why you have an open-ended section on that topic. But with regard to the PH drivers, think about it. We kind of always knew that that was a problem. Because we kind of always knew that PH drivers, you know, why do you register your taxi drivers? You know, what could be the reason or reasons? You know, I mean, is that just something that we inherited from colonialism? Is that a way that we enslave ourselves? Oh my gosh, you have to register taxis? That's so 1918. This is 2026. We just allow anybody to pick up passengers, right? No, we kind of knew already that it comes with certain detrimental situations and conditions, like the taxis aren't registered. Therefore, perpetrators of crimes could masquerade as PH taxis. PH taxis could become easy targets of opportunity as the victims of crimes. And then, of course, there is the whole situation where it decided to regulate safety standards with regards to unregistered, unlicensed, well, unregistered PH unofficial taxi drivers. How do you ensure that, you know, they're meeting some degree of standards with regards to how they drive, the condition of their car, etc., etc.? How do you know that these guys are responsible? Because you leave it open-ended. It's a crapshoot. Whoever wants to go at it, have at it. The problem is, it was easy to turn a blind eye to the situation because we needed them. Why did we need them? As in one of the reports, a UE student pointed to the fact that she needs maxi taxis to get to class. Taxis are more expensive. She can't necessarily afford that. And PTSC buses are not reliable or efficient. Instead of thinking, I know what the solution should be, because think about it. Are we going to make the argument? Because usually the argument is, oh, taxi drivers and maxi taxi drivers will go out of business if we improve the public transportation system, which I think is an excuse because you have to hire people, right? Oh, by the way, not everybody that drives these H vehicles own the vehicles or the band. That's a whole other thing, right? So, these PH drivers are needed. We don't have a public transportation system. Now, it's one thing to say we don't want to put the H drivers out of business. Are we going to make that argument for the PH drivers as well? Because again, a public transportation system needs workers. You know, like it makes jobs. The jobs don't have to be minimum wage jobs. Just saying. They could get fair compensation. It doesn't have to be, you know, brain surgery levels of compensation or brain surgeon levels. But still, we don't necessarily view taxis as the most glamorous, lucrative work. Maybe it is. I don't know. You know, maybe some people hustle enough, and then by hustling they get into accidents. I don't know. But we have allowed a situation, multiple situations, multiple issues to persist right before our eyes. And we're like, yeah, it's fine, until it's not. Until part of the informal system, because when you take it in its entirety, it's an informal system, right? We have maxi taxis, we have H cars, we have PH cars, and then we have, in probably the minority, PTSC buses. And the PH cars are necessary to allow the system to function. So the system is, to some extent, based on informal arrangements. And we've allowed this to persist when we know better, when we knew better, because it was easier. So, not just the public transportation network being deficient, not just not putting things in place to allow proper official regulated modes of transport and not have to rely on these unofficial drivers, but then also the issues of the maxi taxi drivers and potentially issues of taxi drivers themselves. goes unresponded to. Because there's bigger fish to fry, apparently. Except tell me what aspect of our public transportation system, whether private operated or state operated, is in a very healthy place. One of the issues is our economy is based on certain balance points, and those balance points are not really forgiving, right? One of the things I noticed, because we drove through Chaguanas yesterday, there was no big pothole, but there was an area when you now come off the highway to go into Chaguanas, where the roads was just wavy. It's not like Royston Road where it's wavy parallel to the road, but it was just a lot of bumps. Your car's just doing this. And that was just one patch, right? One of the things with the road networks is it damages citizens' vehicles, it damages the vehicles that we rely on for the public transportation system. But yet it seems as though, and listen, I understand that parts of the countryside are worse off, but the roads in Port of Spain are not pristine and are not repaired right away. And there are potholes everywhere in Port of Spain. So when you look at our road network, basically you have to ask yourself, not where are there potholes, but where are there no potholes? And the answer to that probably is, there is nowhere in this country where the roads are in good condition. There's issues with the condition of our roads throughout. They're not really studying to fix that either, are they? Which is funny, because that used to be one of the election gimmicks, right? Think about it. Oh, they paving road because it's an election, they paving road because it's an election. But when you really think about it, the road maintenance, has anyone been happy with the road maintenance? Now, maybe, of course, it's because of the refinery being shut down, bitumen now have to be imported, blah, 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 blah. But the short-term gains of, well, we pave the roads and then they see us doing something, so they think they take us seriously. Like, that seems to be over. Yeah, they might still kind of do it, but they're not really taking it seriously anymore, because we've gone through, at times it seems like years upon years of the roads are just bad. And the people eventually figure out if they pave it in year 5, that means they allowed it to be bad years 1, 2, 3, and 4. Maybe I shouldn't get Mama Guy by the paving in year 5. But they have bigger fish to fry, apparently. The problem is things like public transportation and road networks, they directly contribute or detract from national productivity. National productivity then directly translates into GDP. GDP, production, revenue, profit then directly translates to tax revenue. But we don't think about long-term investments. Basically, our governments operate in the sense of, we don't want to deal with the termites because we don't want to spend any money to deal with the termites. What do you mean, the house will collapse? That's fine, that's someone else's problem, because I don't know if I'm going to be in government when that happens down the line. I rather not spend the $4,000 to treat termites in the house now. I'm not concerned about the entire house collapsing and the loss of an asset that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's essentially what governments go through. That's seemingly the type of thought process that they have. What, we lose productivity because the transportation system and the transportation network are inefficient, are not well maintained? Oh well. What, we're losing tax revenue? Oh well. I rather build an airport that we don't need, that can't yet open, that we ourselves who built it didn't open, so we can't just blame the other party. I'd rather do that than take $1 billion and try to see what infrastructure projects I could spend that money in order to help boost the long-term economic prospects of the nation. I mean, listen, when politicians don't understand the concepts of diversification and the concepts of what an audit is and how it's supposed to be independent, then you can kind of understand that they're not necessarily going to see the linkages of bad roads might be costing us a lot of productivity on a daily basis that will add up to a reduction in tax revenue and will contribute to that ease of doing business thing, which will then limit small business growth, expansion, development, which will then, of course, limit economic growth, which will then, of course, once again, limit tax revenue. I know what we'll do. Let's increase excise and duties on alcohol and make that more expensive. That'll solve the problem. Let's cut the gas revenue. That'll solve the problem. So, of course, now, one of the things is we can't take the maxi taxi drivers for granted until it's like, oh, wait, we need them. Here's the thing. There's a lot of people who probably should be protesting more. Right? There's a lot of people who, the people who threaten to protest the most are the people who probably, I have the least concern about their issues. The people who don't protest that much, if at all, are probably ones who should be protesting more. Right? Now, there are some groups that are in the middle, like teachers. Not all teachers are bad, not all teachers are good. You know, depending on the union leader and the message that the union has, my opinion on them might vary. But there are probably a lot of good teachers who, all things being equal, they probably deserve the chance to air their grievances and try to fight for better working conditions. But, you know, it is what it is. I'm not saying more money, I'm saying better working conditions. Because the maxi-taxi drivers' issues are making it more difficult for them to do their job. If it's more difficult for them to do their job, they're still going to do it. But again, productivity, etc., we're losing it when they're not as efficient and as productive as possible, right? Your workers have to come get to their job from somewhere, and not everybody has a car. It is what it is. It's not too dissimilar to schools. Our school system has devolved to the point where what used to be horror stories seemingly now is more commonplace and regular. But more importantly, the long-term prospects of students seemingly are getting worse and worse. Not because of an inability to perform academically, but rather because discipline is out the window, values are out the window, any sort of human development with regards to any sense of right or wrong, any sense of morality. Not to say that the children are inherently evil, but they're, for whatever reason, started off on this path that potentially has a very bad end, and the mechanisms that are supposed to be guiding them away from these things are not working anymore. We don't know why, and instead of attacking the problem with any sense of urgency, and maybe the minister is, but this is beyond a ministerial issue, right? This is bigger than, as much as it's an education issue, a school issue, to say that the Ministry of Education, well, it's a you problem, you solve it on your own. The rest of us, we have nothing to do with it. That would be a mistake. But hey, no one ever accused politicians in this country of being great leaders and strategic thinkers. Because we're looking at the long-term prospects of these students. And we have to ask ourselves, how did it incrementally? Because it's not as though it went from great to bad overnight. It probably was incremental changes until the situation became untenable, until the tools that used to work in the past don't work anymore, and now it got bad. Yeah, the same thing could happen. There's more room for our national transportation situation to bottom out, you know. Or before it bottoms out, it could fall further. Now, here's the thing. I don't want to be proven right. I don't even want to provide the opportunity to see how bad it could get. Why is it, and this is another human thing, why do we have this proclivity of saying, well, you know, not that we say it proactively, but our lack of action, our inaction kind of implies this is what we want, whether we actually want it or not. Let's see how bad it could go. It seems to be fine right now. It's okay. You know, duct tape and string, keeping it together. We're fine, nothing to see here. I mean, and then when you have every now and then some maxi-taxi accident and people get hit and blah, 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 no one, oh my gosh, how could this happen? Well, how could the jet ski incident in Tobago happen? Same thing. At some point, complacency sets in. At some point, a lack of accountability, oversight, regulations, enforcement of the rules, it sets in. The maxi-taxi drivers have every right to point out to the fact that this PH driver situation is causing issues. Some of the issues affects them directly, some of them affects everybody. I mean, we underestimate the fact that essentially we have to allow illegal activity for our public transportation system to function. Think about that. You want to talk about law and order? Whether it is the Prime Minister, the opposition leader, whoever, callers, stakeholders, whoever, you want to talk about law and order? What is the solution? Because we are aiding and abetting in a form of lawlessness. It's fine, right? This is Trinidad and Tobago. What's the big deal? But that attitude translates to other things. That mindset translates to other things. That example will then affect psychologically the human brain and will be, whether consciously or subconsciously, applied to other things. Let's move on to the next topic. The ASP should be here. He's running a little late, but that's okay. One of the other things I wanted to mention today is now apparently, I don't want to say there's a debate, but it came up with senior attorneys cautioning the media against publishing any sort of material that could prejudice the criminal case involving Kaya Sealy. And it's not necessarily prejudice for or against, just prejudice in general. Here's the problem, right? Now, I think part of them, they're saying, even the protest, this is from Senior Counsel Israel Khan, right? He has to be free from external influences, includes protests outside the office of the DPP. All right, fine. On some level, in a vacuum, as a principal statement, Senior Counsel is correct. The protests, whether they intend to influence the DPP or not, will be some sort of pressure. Whether it actually happens or not is irrelevant. The fact is there is the potential that is there, and it's kind of like a conflict of interest where once the doubt creeps in, you can't be certain. You have to be as isolated as possible in order to ensure that there is no doubt. The problem is, it's really a hoot that it comes up now. And look, Fareed Ali, who I had on the show to speak about the case, he has similar concerns, and I get it. Here's the thing, though. The point that I wanted to make more than anything else, right? Because yes, there's a lot of things that happen. We don't know what happened in the car. I saw, and this may be where their concerns are even more pertinent, right? Because it's hard to tell protesters, hey, you can't protest because you might influence the case, and we don't want you to influence the case because who knows what that might mean, and blah, 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 and fairness, and blah, 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 and propriety, and blah, blah, blah. I saw a video that claimed to be the analysis from a forensic private consultancy firm or something along those lines from the UK. And they had what seemed to me be a narrator on the video giving their analysis. Now, part of the problem is I don't know if the voice is an AI voice. Part of the other problem is the analysis. I don't know if the parameters given to said company was kind of weird, but they were talking about things about where one of the officers, maybe they came out of the gold Tida and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, now they did make an interesting point with regards to, I think if you analyze the video in slow motion, depending on the situation now, again, you don't know what happened in the car. it's not guaranteed that we would have heard any gunshots from within the car. One could argue, though, it's not guaranteed that we would not hear any gunshots fired in the car. But you could track the bullet's trajectory to see potentially, I don't want to say for certain because I didn't actually bother going through this, because again, this is where the senior counsels and attorneys are correct saying, hey, why don't we just let this be sorted out in trial, right? Let's not try to do, you know, armchair forensical analysis right now. However, the argument essentially being made was you could kind of track and see the police fire the gun, bullets hit the rear driver's side passenger window, and then exits out the front windscreen, potentially implying that it wasn't gunfire coming from within the car, it was gunfire going towards the car, right? And then people say, oh, the glass fell outside, and then I counter that with the angle, but I also say we don't know for certain. So this isn't really something we can debate. We could present our theories, and theories would have evidence, right? And the whole video presentation I found to be very, not everything was pertinent. It was weird. I'm like, why are they presenting certain things to us in their analysis? Now, maybe it was a blind analysis in that they weren't given any parameters. They were just saying, hey, here's the video, analyze this. But one of the other things is maybe it's an AI analysis. I don't know. And the inability to properly assess what it is that this video is purporting, you know, it makes you wonder, like, is this relevant? Is this worthy of consideration? And then what does that mean now with the narrative and potentially with regards to the trial, right? Again, Frida Lee raises the issue of forming views in a vacuum without having all the information. Here's the problem. If you leave the population to their own devices, they will speculate. I've been saying this for years. That's what the PNM did, and that contributed to their downfall, whether you believe it or not. I believe that the speculations contributed to their negative perception, which contributed to their downfall. Because not all of the things the PNM was accused of, they actually did. I'm not saying that they were clean, I'm just saying they have a lot of wild speculation out there, some of which contradicts each other. So literally, some of the accusations against the PNM, they physically couldn't do because they could not go in two directions at the same time, whether it is physically or rhetorically. That said, one would have hoped the current government would learn from the mistakes of their predecessors, especially since they were just there in the wings monitoring, observing, watching, number one. And number two, one would have hoped, how do we not be them? Oh, I know. Let's not repeat their mistakes. That should be simple, right? Now, ironically, we're going to solve the issue of crime by doing the same things they did. Except we'll just put a SOE on the top, and oh my gosh, we've transformed the thing entirely. It's a whole different crime problem now. Look at us, look at us. You know, don't mind the detection rate. Yes, it is a whole different crime problem. The detection rate is somehow lower. I mean, or maybe it's not lower. Maybe it's not lower. Maybe it's not lower. Can't remember. Did it get as bad as 8%? Anyway. But when we have a situation like this, do you know what prevents the population from speculating? I don't know. Bad information, you can't counter it by saying people, the information is bad, don't believe it, and then you just leave a vacuum. Because the best result you could hope for is the population replaces the bad information with more bad information. What you have to do is fight bad information with good information. The key point, as we've been saying every time, is you're not going to say everything. You're not going to reveal everything. You're not going to give away everything. But you are going to give away what you can, what is permissible. Because you need to provide some information to counteract the bad information. One of the things is, we recovered a gun. Like, this is not that hard. We recovered a gun on the scene. And by doing things right from the beginning, you avoid this situation now, where not only is the public not going to believe you, or at least is very less inclined to believe you, and more of the public is less inclined to believe you, but they are more inclined to go with whatever wild speculation is out there. They're more inclined to be passionate and inflamed and to speak out and to protest and to try to exert influence because they see a situation that is completely corrupt and devoid of any sort of fairness, devoid of any sort of proper thinking, right thinking, ethical thinking. And they don't want it to get any worse according to their perception. And you know why they have that perception? Because the people in charge mucked it up from the start, basically. What else is there to say? Does anyone think that the Minister of Homeland Security and the Commissioner did a good job in the initial public statements on this issue? It's just fanning the flames, and then the Prime Minister comes along and activates an industrial air fan to ensure that that massive warehouse fire has all the oxygen it needs. So we have reached the point now where I understand that senior counsel is concerned about how this thing is going to look, what it might mean, how it could affect the trial. The problem is that is in a vacuum. You have to put also the context that it was allowed to reach this point because the situation was mismanaged. Politically, it was mismanaged. By not wanting to reveal anything that's pertinent and having bad political messaging alongside the lack of information. Now you're at a point where you probably have so much bad information and it's so widespread. What are you going to do? Well, they revealed some details recently, but it's too late. And it looks suspicious because it's so late. It looks suspicious. Because this is the flip side now, right? They're concerned about what the protests might do to the trial. They're concerned that public sentiment at the court of public opinion might affect things too much. Well, whether she wants it or not, and I have seen nothing to say that she is a grifter, the Prime Minister could take that and shove it I don't care where. You need to actually show that she's a grifter. Not just say that she's a grifter, because you come across, by doing so, here's the irony, like a grifter. A political grift. Madam Prime Minister, respectfully, I say this with all the respect that you gave the protesters. Whatever level of respect you gave them, trust me, that's the amount of respect on this issue I'm giving you. I don't know if she intended to do this, but Alyssa Phillips is now being heralded as a vibrant new symbol of advocacy and justice. It's not going away because you want it to go away. Now, of course, the question is, what does she do with this perception of her moving forward? I'm not saying that she literally has to speak out against everything. And also, it shouldn't just be limited to her. But the concerns of the senior counsels, I understand, I appreciate them. But that is not enough, in my opinion, to say that the protest should stop. But also, I am a little bit disappointed. Now, I guess I myself am not protesting. If you think it's an issue worthy of protesting, have at it. Maybe I should be protesting, to be honest. My arguments are more predicated on government communication, and I understand why people are upset. So it's a weird spot where I'm encouraging them to do a thing that I'm technically not doing. And there's a certain degree where that's not right, to be honest, and I acknowledge that. But here we have now a new symbol of advocacy. And people are looking to rally around that. And I don't know if she could sustain it. I don't know if this is good for her. You know, there's so many things that this could mean for her, some good, some bad. You know, this kind of work, when done in good faith and when done correctly, involves a lot of sacrifice. And perhaps she's not here necessarily to speak on every issue. She just had to speak on this issue. And if she's not going to continue on after this is to whatever degree resolved, who comes next? Because it's one thing for someone to champion a cause and the cause to rally around her, but it's another thing when you're the symbol, not of a cause, but the symbol of advocacy on a whole. I wonder if that implies a lacking in our societal framework. It's not going to go away. And depending on how bad you mismanage it moving forward, it's only going to grow. And if this is going to affect the way how trials are conducted, you can't blame the protesters, because the problem isn't the protesters. The problem is the situation that spawned the protests in the first place. And if you don't fix that, it will continue. Even if this group of protesters stop, even if this young lady that's organizing these protests stops, somebody else hopefully will take up the baton, because heaven forbid, there are negative implications of a population that is unwilling to speak out for things that are supposed to be important for them. And I wonder if the attorneys considered that. Not saying that I think they were wrong, but unfortunately these things, they don't operate in a vacuum. Let's take a break. ESP is here. When we return, we'll get into our conversations with our media ambassador. Stay tuned. This is Tokamana WSN. We'll be right back after this.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Are you driven, ambitious, and ready to earn? WESN, the content capital, is expanding, and we're looking for dynamic media sales executives to join our team. Sell powerful advertising solutions across television, digital, and social media platforms, and help brands tell their story. If you have strong communication skills, a passion for sales, and the drive to succeed, join WESN today. Send your CV to marketing@wsncc.com or WhatsApp 68-61662 and start building your future.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Our award-winning show is back, and this season promises to be even more exciting than before. What's Up, Doc isn't just a title. It's a call to action for anyone who wants to improve their health and well-being. Join us on this thrilling ride towards better health on WESN Content Capital.
In this day of stay-at-home and work from home, home has never meant more than it does today. Whether you're looking to buy, rent, or build your new home, now is the time to get going. Gittins & Gittins real estate agents are here to take you to that place of your dreams. Let us take you home. We help you find that rental to rest along the way, or journey with you to find your home destination. Investors and commercial enterprises too, call us and we'll walk the distance to place your business in just the right location. Owners, leave the headaches to us. We'll find your tenants or buyers while you stay at home. We'll even manage your property at your bidding. anything real estate, come home to Gittins and Gittins Real Estate. Call us at 760-3280 or 747-1220 or visit us at 16 Fifth Street in Woodbrook.
Hi, I am Emiliana Beechan and I am a mental health and conflict resolution consultant. Welcome to Mind Matters, the show where we explore the intricate world of mental health and the art of conflict resolution. Join us as we hear from mental health professionals, conflict resolution experts, and everyday people who have transformed their lives through understanding and communication. Mind Matters, WESN Content Capital.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really want
to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I would ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Right.
Right, so here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
And we're back here and talking about the WSN Content Capital, and now we will continue the conversation, I guess, because, and we had this last week, and we're continuing it. I will, of course, try not to be too political with our media ambassador, because the media ambassadors are here more on the practical, technical aspects of what the public needs to know. Always remember that. Don't be asking media ambassadors why the Prime Minister doing what she's doing. Just saying. Just saying. Of course, joining me, of course, is our media ambassador, acting ASP Christopher Arun.
Thanks for having me. Good day to you.
It's good to see you again.
Yeah,
again.
in person. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I don't know. Maybe I am more in anticipation of, well, you managed to sort yourself out there. You managed to sort yourself out there. Meanwhile, he's like, yeah, I went Blancheshire Saturday nights, working, you know, 11 o'clock, checking a station or some nonsense like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have visits this week too.
Yeah.
I think it's a holiday Thursday.
Yes, it's supposed to be a holiday Thursday. Yeah. I tend to not think about these things until they happen.
Yeah, I get detailed to work, so as usual. So.
As usual. And he says it with a smile. He says it with a smile. All right.
That's the job.
So, speaking about protests,
right?
What is the current situation? One of the things is apparently it came out in the press where I don't know how official it is, because other people have said this too, not just on the show but also off the air. You're not supposed to protest during an SOE. But at the same time, I think at some point it became kind of murky as to if there was anything to stop protesting an SOE. But now on what it was, Wednesday, of course, they had the announcement.
Yeah.
They said you can't protest certain places.
Right. No, well, it's about subjectiveness, it's about interpretation. One might think that it's your constitutional right to protest. However, during an SOE, your constitutional rights are not upheld as much as, that.
Yeah, of course.
You're not allowed to practice it as much as before. So during an SOE, as I said, a police officer could stop you without reasonable and probable cause and search you because it's an SOE. As opposed to outside of an SOE, you must have reasonable and probable cause, right? So in the same breath, when we look at the protests, you have the right to protest under normal circumstances. In the sense of you must have a permit if it's going to be a march or a procession.
Right.
So you must have permission. However, when you look at the summary offense, the summary courts, after the summary offense act, it tells you it's allowed. It says once you have applied for the permission, doesn't mean it has to be granted.
Oh.
In terms of a peaceful protest, so there's a difference between a peaceful protest and a march or procession. So a peaceful protest, if you look at some schools of thought, it would tell you, or even maybe case law, in terms of the judicial area, they would say, well, look, a peaceful protest isn't a march or a procession. So you don't need a permit. Right. So you don't need, you're allowed to protest. But a peaceful, but
I guess a peaceful protest will kind of, it's implied, if it's not a march, that means it's static.
Right. So in some interpretation, it may mean an individual, just one individual.
Right.
Right. Secondly, it may mean a peaceful protest may mean a gathering of persons where they don't cause any risk or harm to public safety.
Or disruption.
Or disruption. However, it's very hard not to disrupt the public.
Yeah.
So let me say, for instance, you're having a protest in front of the DPP's office, as you saw take place there. You may hinder persons from entering and leaving the compound, which in itself...
Or just pedestrians?
Or pedestrians, which in itself, and then you may cause a traffic pileup. Because you know how Trinidadians are, we call it macro traffic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So in that sense, you would cause some hindrance to public safety and a risk to public safety. In that, so therefore, you may be silent on the protest and you may feel it's a peaceful protest. But, and then some interpretations tell you that a peaceful protest is a protest that you could still chant, speak, voice your concerns and whatnot. Once it doesn't have any violence or intimidation to members of the public or risk to harm and safety, but it's about interpretation. So at any point, and then you have the state of emergency. And then you now have a notification, a notice indicating there are places that you are prohibited, even furthermore, to protest. And I think it's the Parliament, Prime Minister's residence, the DPP's office, the AG's office. It's about, I think, 10 or 15 numbers.
It's the DPP's office, police building,
right.
A couple of ministries, obviously the national security ones and finance, the Prime Minister's office, Parliament, the ports, the presidents, yes, the office of the presidents. I'm not sure. I can't remember if it was the residence or if it was an office.
Right.
The diplomatic center.
Right.
So both the office of the Prime Minister and the diplomatic center. The two airports, I believe, and the Port Authority building.
Right. And they did indicate if it was DPP South or not? You can't recall?
I think there was only one entry. So
is it just the premises and the curtilage of the DPP's office and whatnot?
Possibly.
Right.
Possibly the north one or possibly...
And I don't think Forensic Science Center was indicated in that.
I'm not sure.
Right. I'm not
sure. The thing is, and this is beyond the police's purview, but on some level I do understand saying don't protest outside the DPP's office, right?
Yeah.
And if you had, like, the police administration headquarters, that's in town, those streets are not necessarily, like, the easiest, those sidewalks are not the biggest, those streets are not the biggest. I kind of understand that.
Right, and even in that same breath, Sean, if you look at Independence Square, as I said, if we look at Independence Square and we have a protest, whether it be peaceful or not, and you have a protest on Independence Square, you're going to cause some hindrance to the safety and to members of the public in terms of traffic, the congestion, the freedom to walk on the pavement and whatnot. You're going to cause some hindrance. And you may be called upon by the police to stop and disperse. And if you don't, you'll be arrested and charged.
You see, this is, and I said this at the beginning, this is a rock and a hard place situation.
Yeah.
Because this is similar to when they were initially protesting COVID lockdown. The thing that they're protesting in that case was directly being used as justification to say you can't protest. Now, in this case, you're not necessarily protesting the SOE, but the SOE is kind of tied indirectly to what you are protesting.
Right.
So the population now is some people are going to look at it funny when you say, well, no, you just can't. Like, again, I kind of understand because Israel Khan Senior Counsel and Fareed Ali made that case, look, shouldn't really be trying to influence the DPP. And on some level, the DPP, you can't say was part of whatever you might have perceived with regards to how this situation was managed from before, right? You should judge them from what they do from this point moving on.
Yeah.
So, you know, influencing him in a way, and it's like perceived conflict of interest, right? It doesn't matter if he's influenced. It's hard to it's hard for him to prove that he's not influenced.
And just to remind members of the public that the DPP makes decisions, and in this case, in a criminal case, makes it on prima facie evidence. So once there's no reasonable doubt and there's prima facie evidence, he has no other choice but to pursue criminal action. He has no other choice. And his hands are basically bound.
And the thing is, again, on some level, you have to say, well, I don't trust the DPP to have an issue with it because a charge is not a conviction, right?
No, it isn't.
The process of trial, in theory, should bring the evidence to light, air out the entire arguments for and against, and settle the situation, hopefully.
Yeah, I think it's an opportunity for the country to heal once it gets sorted out in the court. I think this is an opportunity that you have two opposing sides saying, listen, this is the direction, and there's due process in place for this.
I think the problem is, and this is, first of all, I think there are a lot of people subconsciously have concerns. They might not necessarily know how to voice it, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things, of course, is, well, she was charged.
For the protest.
But does that mean that the officers have been cleared?
No,
right.
They haven't been cleared.
I know, I understand this, but that's the thing. There's so much things still missing. And perhaps members of the public don't necessarily appreciate the fact that, look, that doesn't mean that the process is over in its entirety.
No, it isn't.
But they are looking at a situation where, well, I kind of didn't trust it from the beginning, and now you're asking me to trust it now.
Yeah, correct.
And it's difficult.
No, I think that, as I said, when I spoke about the healing process, it does mean it needs to be meted out in the court, sorted out by the court. The court would look at the facts. There's no guarantee anybody would win in this case.
Right.
Right? So let the process take place. We don't know when the individual will come back to Trinidad. We don't know when that's going to happen. That has happened in some form or fashion for the court, the judicial process to start. And once that starts, then it could be all the information, all the facts can be sorted out in the court. And then everybody would hear now what really occurred. Where's the police evidence? Is it?
I fear, though, that because, not with regards to anything specific for the people involved in this case, but historically, we don't really get a clear picture of a lot of situations, even after there's a trial, right? And in some cases, particularly the ones that are even more political, we'll be lucky if we even see here that there was evidence and charges were laid, much less actually having a trial.
The defense would get disclosure. So
no, I know, I'm talking for the public.
Right, no, and this is the opportunity for the defense to make public the disclosure. Because you have, so every piece of evidence the police will have, they would produce it to the defense before trial.
Now that it's been laid out, one of the implications, I guess, is that, well, you're saying we can't protest in these, I think it's like 15 spots, 12 spots, right?
Yeah.
Does that mean that other protests are fine? Because now, again, it opens up the door for the, you know how people are, right? So you're saying there's a rule, and they want the rule to be binary, yes, no, right? When you say it's subjective, people start to get very like, they either want to push the buttons and game the system, or they're very uncertain and they don't like being uncertain. Because, of course, there's a political protest happening in
Right, but when you look, like for instance, when you look at the protests at the Forensic Science Center, and even in the DPP's office, the senior officers there who directed them to a location that they were allowed to protest. So the police were allowing them to protest. It's just not at the spot they wanted to.
Right.
So in the case of the Forensic Science Center, you heard the officer say, we want you to go, I think one of them was saying, to the tree, right? And that's past Forensic Science Center.
This is on the same side, or this is on the opposite side?
I believe it was on the same side.
Okay,
from my memory.
So it would have been somewhere down the sidewalk.
Correct, yeah.
Given space.
Given space, right.
Right.
So you didn't want to interrupt the services rendered at this Forensic Science Center, right? There's a lot of, how you call it? There's a lot of evidence, there's a lot of services that are provided by the Forensic Science Center. You have the autopsies.
Right, civilians might have to go there.
We have firearms coming in and out of the Forensic Science Center.
Right.
We have a huge amount of narcotics coming in and out of the Forensic Science Center. So you have a lot of, and we're talking about cocaine, we're talking about drugs, we're talking about marijuana, we're talking in and out. We have a lot of firearms, hundreds of firearms. You know, there's police officers there stationed there for the purposes of security. There's security officers and whatnot. There are security, built-in security there that protects the Forensic Science Center. It's very close in proximity to the police barracks as well and whatnot. Things we can't even really speak about, but nonetheless, it's there for a purpose, and we don't allow large crowds to gather at the Forensic Science Center because in itself is a security risk.
Yeah.
All right? Some persons might be there for peaceful reasons, but we don't know who come in to hijack that protest. We don't know what, nefarious reasons they may have.
I mean, you're touching on something that is now touching on the political. So I'm going to try as much as possible to insulate the conversation from that. But with regards to the protests, were there any security concerns, not general, that will come from any protest? Because like you said, we don't know who will hijack it. We discussed this last week as well, right? Yeah. But rather, were there, as far as you're aware, any security concerns with the actual intended protesters and the organizers beyond the fact that they might, take up space in the road and block traffic?
With them, no.
Yeah.
But there's always a risk. So, no, not necessarily with the protesters. They seem to be peaceful. They were there for a definite purpose and whatnot that we could have interpreted or even looked at. However, as I said, but there's always a risk. So we wanted them away from that location to stop any hindrance to the work and services being rendered at the Forensic Science Center.
So right now there's still leeway, because one of the things I think it was the framing. It was very weird with the framing, because I think on some level, and if you just read the headlines, you definitely will read it this way, that, okay, this is a hard thing, no protests, right? But now you're saying, well, no, on some level, the police is still willing and able to utilize some degree of understanding.
And they did on the Sunday at the police administration building in Port of Spain. They directed them to across the road as opposed to where they were before. They allowed them to protest for a certain amount of time, and then they asked them to disperse. And in every case, as I said last week and now, in every case, the police would call upon them and direct them as to where to go and if to disperse or not. And once they follow the instructions of the police officers, right? So the police would interpret, let's say, a protest getting chaotic. It's getting out of hand. It's getting violent or intimidating. It causing any hindrance to members of the public or even any risk to members of the public safety. The police would call upon them to disperse at some point in time. But before that, they would allow them in every case, the police officers allowed them to protest in a peaceful manner at a particular location, and they directed them in front of police administration building, in front of the DPP's office, and in front of Forensic Science Center. They asked them to move away to a particular location where they could have been controlled better. So it's all about control. It's not about, preventing persons from exercising their constitutional rights, although it's a submitted during an SOE.
Can you explain why the people who are arrested outside the DPP's office, why they were arrested? Now, I just want to say, we did acknowledge the fact that, look, you got to be prepared to be arrested now if you're gonna do this during a state of emergency.
Yeah, I think that I'm not too sure. To be honest, I'm not too sure. I didn't see the evidence or looked at the evidence. From what I saw on TV and social media, was that they called upon them to disperse.
Right.
These persons were leading the protests, and because they failed to follow the directions of the police officers there, they were arrested because they were the persons in charge of the protests. So they took them into custody. It appeared so to me that they failed to comply with those. Now, this is for the purpose of the protests. They failed to comply with those officers' instructions to stop the protests and disperse. That's what it appeared to be. They told them where to go, and they failed to go there. Because I remember the officers, I don't know if social media cut and paste these videos, but nonetheless, it appeared that at some point in time, I saw Inspector Durga and Superintendent Beard directing the protesters to a particular location. And then, while the arrest was going on, it seemed that they came back to that, in front of the DPP's office, close to the church there. So it seemed that they came back, and because of that, they were arrested.
Right, okay.
That's what it seemed to be.
I knew it was tricky going in,
yeah,
but it just seems to be even trickier now with regards to the fact that, and I understand people might not be ready to appreciate the fact that on some level, police officers, they're not looking to, well, we can't have you protesting us. We don't like it. The problem is, it is one of those, and maybe this is how our politics are. Like, people will be like, of course the police don't want you to protest them, so they're going to try and stop it, right? No, I get that because we actually don't necessarily have that widespread in our history, because if we did, it would probably be more prominent, as you were saying, because on some level, it's not as though they started the protests and they were arrested right away, and riot police came out. And that's another thing, I guess, that's tricky for people to understand. You're going to have riot police there, not because you anticipate needing to take out batons and cracking heads.
It's in case.
It's in case.
Yeah.
And I guess it comes back to the, because we've talked about this before, if you have a show of force, sometimes it's easier to peacefully control a situation as opposed to if you have like 2 officers there trying to get a crowd of people to comply.
In my experience, I've been in protests before as a task force officer in hotspot areas, and it's been difficult to really control protests. So you have to have that show of force, that unified show of force. So you have the GB officers, and thankfully they didn't get out of hand where they had to crack heads, if you understand. Use the batons and pull it out. There's a strategy with that. There's a process with that. And it's a particular movement that they have to practice if it gets chaotic. And then they have to pull in people. They get into there's a way to get persons to be subdued. And they didn't reach to that. Thankfully, they didn't reach to that. But they were prepared for that. So it's better to listen to the officers. And in case, as we said before, nothing stops individuals from having protests in a private place. And you break out the social media and you speak. But in this case, if you want to make it public and you want to use the pavement and you want, ask the officers on the scene, where can we protest? Is it safe to protest here? Should we be directed to a location somewhere else that we would be allowed? And they would tell you exactly where you could stand and have your peaceful protests and whatnot.
I think just what makes it difficult is, of course, the nature of the case. The nature of the case is, well, we perceive a couple officers and potentially the commissioner doing X. So then now it seems almost unnatural, That's like we're gonna protest apartheid. Oh, please, racist politicians, where are we supposed to protest you? Like it seems kind of there's an emotional disconnect, but at the same time, on some level, to not have that consideration denies the complexity of human relations.
I understand exactly what you're saying, but I don't think that these protesters, these organizers, have anything against the entire TTPS. Right? So it's particularly individuals, it's particular actions that were taken, and it's how it was dealt with.
Even for the organizer, it's very difficult for her, just trust me on this, to have a nuanced position that she then imparts on the protests. Because you have to try to get everybody to fall in line with nuance and subtlety and the minute details. But before we go any further, we do have a caller waiting on the line. Caller, good morning, you on the air?
Morning, Sean. How you going?
We're all right.
I just get orders to warn this Honorable Prime Minister, do not interfere with that Amerindian name of this airport in Trinidad. She had done, the Minister of Culture had done disrespected those in Arima already. There's the War Council section of the Northern Range of the Indigenous Organization. We link to Cuba and other Amerindian countries in the whole of the Caribbean, especially Venezuela. A lot of us here is part half Trini and half Veni. Tell her don't interfere with our names of our places, please. Right? I'm begging her. And I want to say good morning to the Chief of Defense Staff.
Caller, oh, it sounded like we lost. Yeah, it sounded like the caller got cut. Yes, we didn't cut the call because that took all of us here by surprise. I don't know if the caller ran out of money or something happened. We were hearing some beeps. I can never necessarily tell exactly what the beeps mean, to be honest, if there's another call incoming or what have you. So, caller, we apologize. If you can call in, if you have anything else to finish off, you can. But I was not aware that the name of Piarco was up for grabs. We have a Rima on the line. I don't know.
Morning.
Morning. Guys, we have...
So, good morning to the officer there.
Good day, good day.
Pleasant good morning.
Good day, ma'am.
Yes, I want to say that I agree. I supporting the maxi driver 100%. I know it has some persons, they understand they're using the maxi frequently, but we have to support the driver because you know what? They are human beings just like everybody else. They have their rent, their mortgage to pay just like everybody else. They have to eat a food too, just like everybody else. And I find it is high time or you pay up the money, give the drivers and them their salary, because at the end of the day, all the drivers you see driving the maxis, it can mean to say the maxi are theirs, you know. It have some drivers retired and they put them in it. So that is to tell you they have to get their money too and they have to pay the drivers who driving it. So not because people see the driver driving a maxi on the road. That I mean to say that is their maxi, they're driving it for other people. So the other people now, the owners of the maxi now, they have to collect a certain amount of money when the month comes. And then when the week comes, and then after that, after the driver make their money and put down at least $1,000, it's alleged. And after they make that $1,000 and put down for the drivers and then for the owner, they have to come back and make money for themselves too, right? They have to put gas in the maxi. The maxi might have a little tire. It might have a tire problem. They have to fix all that. So all you please, give the drivers and them their money now. It's been a long time. They need their money just like everybody else. Just like how the unions fighting for their workers and them, the drivers need their money too. Give them and help them out now. So everybody will eat a little food when the day comes. Don't look for only one person to eat all the food. Everybody has to eat something, right? I'll call back a little while after.
Thank you, caller. Yeah, at the very least, there's drivers for school children who apparently it's an arrangement of the ministry.
Why there's a protest?
No, that is one of the reasons. One of the reasons is PH drivers competition, the speed limit.
On the bus route?
Well, just PH drivers on maxi taxi routes. So I don't think it's limited to red band.
Right.
They want an increase on the highway speed limit, which might actually be practical on some regards, right? 65 to 80. They have concerns about crime, and they also NS contributions and the bureaucracy around that. But maxi taxi hubs and terminals, the infrastructure for that.
Yeah.
So there's multiple things that they have issues with. Right. With regards to other things, with regards to money, I don't know if they're necessarily protesting the government. But there is some money from the Ministry of Education, I assume, right? But before I go any further, because I did want to ask you with regards to the crime issues, that one, their concerns wasn't necessarily expanded. Yeah. But we have a call on the line. Caller, good morning. You on here?
Yes. Hello, good morning.
Morning. You're on here, caller. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. Yeah, I just want to weigh into this issue a little bit, right? Listening to to your guest there, right? The police. They seem to be more reactive than anything else, and this is what I feel causing the problem. Right? Based on this explanation there, the forensic center should be one of the first areas on that 15 place where they say protest. That should be one of the first areas.
Correct. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
And even if they know days before that the people are going this protest, the next protest will be the forensic center. You say the protesters should come up to the officers and ask them where is a good place to protest and so on. They're supposed to have the place cordon off, right? Cordon off, put barriers and things so when the protesters arrive, they know look, they can't go beyond a certain point or whatever.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But their intention was to mash up people. They come there with mounted branch, riot, port, all kind of different things. Right? Okay, now going back to the meat of the matter, from what you're saying there. The majority of people like myself is law-abiding citizens, and we willing to trust the process, But what we see going on with the process, I feel we're being sidetracked here because if we focus the thing on Kaya Sealy and charge on Kaya Sealy, what's going to happen? She had to be extradited. She's not here. That process will take a long time. That'll go through the court. That might take the next 10 years. But you know what, working and having people uneasy? The attitude and thing of the police on the scene. People are uncomfortable with that.
Right. Which scene you're talking about?
You can't tell me that was correct police procedure. And so over the weekend, you know what I did?
Right.
Over the weekend, what I did? I went back and...
Oh gosh, caller. I assume the caller was going to say he went back and watched the video again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
Over the weekend, you know what I did? I went back and watched the footage. You watch the extended footage of that video, right? I wasn't paying attention at all the time.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello? Yeah, I went muted all the time.
No, right? Don't worry about that. Keep going.
Right. So I went back and watched, go back and watch that video and watch the extended video, right?
Caller, keep going. Don't worry about being muted.
Yeah, I think you're getting muted all the time. Okay, right. If you watch the extended video, right?
Yeah.
When the let's say muted again.
No, caller, you're not muted. Keep going.
We hearing you now.
Yeah. Okay. When the backup police came, what happened? They followed procedure. They came on the scene, and if you notice, they didn't jump out the car and run to the assistant of the other officers. They started to take cover behind the next vehicle. And it appears to me that the first set of officers was preventing them from coming on the scene too much. And that is why one of the officers ran on and say, open your hand, don't move. And you already know people and was immobile, they could have been dead for that matter. And the other police and them run behind the vehicle taking cover. Right? And here what happened now. After that, and everything died down now, they drive the vehicle forward, put the bodies in the car, and drive off, and then themselves talk or discuss with the other police like what's going on. So the other police and them, what is happening here, boy? They see a car in the car. That is why they came and started to look around and peeping the vehicle and open to see what it is, because they don't know what's going on. The officers who was there first, they drive off and go on with the bodies and everything, and then the other people in front, they look at the next guy in front, they came forward, and everybody, what is happening here, boy? What's going on? And they opened it because the other police believe that the people are alive and still, you know. Right? So my thing is, I don't know about Joshua Samaru and all kind of stuff and like that. Most people ain't concerned about that. If it's an immediate family, right, of course, right? But no people ain't concerned about that. We're concerned about, and you know what? Even that real hardcore criminals, if you're in a car, you don't know who in the car, what kind of firepower and thing they have. You just stop the car and just run up. So if my brother or my son or somebody's husband was a police officer in that thing, I concern for them in that kind of action. You just run up in that vehicle. So, right? If the man really had a gun or they had high-powered rifle, or our 2-3 police officers will get shot down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We want.
Sorry, we have
if it's
another
just in the
caller
process, even just wrapping up. Even if it's just in the process, say the police and put on administrative leave, they go on for counseling or something like that, and right? I know what's going on with the reception here, so.
Yeah. Well, they definitely would be going for counseling.
All right, caller. Yes. Generally speaking, we didn't notice any issues on our end in our earpieces. So I don't know if there was disruptions on the broadcast. I will say this though, I also thought about that. If it was a criminal from a transnational, international network with more experience and was heavily armed, that is not necessarily the safest place to be running.
Well, Sean, nobody said what they did was the correct thing. And what would happen is that throughout the investigation, many things would be investigated. First of all, the criminal part would be investigated. If they are liable. So Police Complaints Authority is conducting the investigation against the police in this matter.
Right.
Right? Or in the case of the police in this matter. What the police officer would look at is if these officers enacted the training that they were trained to do. And if not, they would be advised or they would receive rehabilitative training. If that was the case, we weren't there on the scene. I don't know what the officer was seeing, or seeing and thinking or witnessing that caused him to fear for his life to fire.
So here's the thing. I think that we want to say one side, most people think it's a one side or the other, and I was talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
And I think the truth might be somewhere in the middle where you have bits of blame to go all the way around, right? Yeah. You want to include Mr. Samaru and the running, right? But it will vary. The culpability between individuals, including the individual officers. I don't necessarily think all three of the officers share the same level, but we don't know. We don't know, and that's purely speculative on my part, and I'll leave that there. Do not run with that as though I am saying this is facts. We should have a caller back on the line. Caller, good morning.
Morning, Sean.
Morning, yes.
Yeah. Morning to the Bravo Alpha, the officer.
Good day, good day.
I just sending a message to the Honorable Prime Minister with the changing of the name of Yako Airport. It looks as though a lot of them in this government don't know the history of this land. Do not change no name of the Amerindian people, places, villages, mountains, and all these things. Leave that alone, right? See about the poor people. See about the people that you promised to see about. Don't drift away from that, because right now we're not in a nice place. We're not in a nice place at all, right? And we should keep away from outside businesses with the Caribbean, other Amerindian countries in the Caribbean here. We done press the wrong buttons already, right? I think that is enough messages sent from the chiefs and them on the Northern Range. They belong to our council of the indigenous organization, right? I don't know if the chief in Arima will come to let her change her mind. It's up to them in Arima, there, Santa Rosa people, right? You all have a wonderful rest of the week, and be safe.
Right. So one of your previous callers spoke about the protest at the Forensic Science Center.
Yeah.
And you know that the police should have highlighted the area that they, and he's correct.
Yeah, because it is, I double checked it, it's not one of the 50
No, apparently it isn't. And he definitely is correct. It should have been.
It should have been.
Yeah.
One of the first.
Yeah, one of the first, to be honest. And he is correct that the police should have a location. So maybe it evolved. Maybe the situation at Forensic Center evolved from being civil and peaceful to maybe being a little too overbearing, in the sense that the population of the protesters was growing, and they then saw a need to move the protesters. So it went from individuals to a greater gathering, and that's probably why they moved them. But nonetheless, he's correct. They should probably have a location and say, listen, you all could peacefully protest at this location as opposed to in front of the building. And this may happen for other places that may not be listed on the notice.
So one of the things is, like, I understand airport, port authority.
Yeah.
I understand on some level Ministry of Defense, police headquarters, prison service headquarters, Defense Force headquarters.
Yeah.
We are the issue stems from a national security protest.
Right.
Because there are some people who want to lump the entire criminal justice system into what they're upset with. Ministry of Finance being on this list, and the Forensic Science Center not being on the list.
Yeah. And then you have, and then it could possibly also have been done at Ministry of Education. Yeah. People potentially people might want to protest there. It may include courts. I don't know if there was courts involved on the list.
Ironically, according to the concerns of the attorneys, probably courts should be at the top of the list.
Right. So,
because you definitely don't want undue influence on the various workers, the judges and the magistrates and so on.
Yeah.
We do have Dabadi on the line who take the call a morning.
But the police still has precedence and say at any particular location. To be honest.
The AS3.
Good day. How are you?
Morning.
John, I want to take this thing to a different level, something that I'm not really hearing. And I'm looking at the police being proactive to a possible where the protests could have turned into what you call how they're prepared for when they bring out all the troops and all the GB men and the different things for a riot, the riot squad, right?
Yeah.
I am also looking at the police senior police giving instruction to the people who are protesting. My question this morning to the ASP would be, why would more people arrested? You have prominent people like David Abdullah being at the forefront there, failing to comply, I say, with a lawful instruction from any officer, a senior officer, I think a senior super was there, not sure, or whether it's a superintendent, but whatever rank he might be, whoever was leading and responsible for the riot squad and the policemen on that day, the protesters were given instructions, and each one of them failed to comply. Sean, we are living in a lawless society. Trinidadians believe that they could do anything that they want. And I believe that with this state of emergency, the police could have simply said, because they had this number of protest plan, we are not giving you all any permission to have your protests. And then this whole thing would not have occurred. There's a final one to take place. I don't know if it took place at the forensic science. The previous scholars say you should cordon off the area and that kind of thing. I don't believe that. I believe that they should come out and prevent it from happening. So people would know that if you leave home and come there with a sign to protest, you can be arrested. The police service need to get more serious with minor offenses. I seen it happen in New York at one time where jumping the turnstile, you would be arrested. All minor offenses, broken tail light and all of that, you were offenses. And they caught some of the big guns in doing that. There should be a 0% tolerance with respect to all minor offense. Don't give anybody any chance, anything. If you catch somebody, give them the full brunt of the law, because we are too lawless. And it happened on the street. You see it happening on the street. People want to quarrel with the police officer when they pull them. You're caught driving on the shoulder, and you still want to argue with the police. I say get them case. I am tired of lawlessness in this country, and it's about time that the police start having a 0% tolerance. Even in the schools. The last incident with the alderman in Port of Spain, get them case, send them YTC. Locked on and listening. Wonderful program as usual. Thanks a lot for the opportunity, and you'll have a blessed day.
Thank you, caller. We'll have to respond after. We have another caller waiting. This has to be the last call. We have time. Caller, good morning. You on the air?
Hello?
You on the air, caller?
Good day.
Go ahead. Good day. Morning.
Hello.
Good day, good day.
This matter of changing names. I am totally against changing names, except where there was something negative about the name. Recently, we had it talking about changing Christopher Columbus. If you look at world history, one of the greatest individuals was Christopher Columbus. I don't know what negative thing he ever did. I hear people blaming him for slavery. That slavery long before Christopher Columbus. And I am saying that before we change, why we going to change the name? If we want to honor present people now, name something we build. No. Right? Those people were judged at their time. And if we are looking at this, we have to look at what was the position when they did it. Not today. Thank you. Unless you have any questions or queries.
No caller. No caller.
So the other caller raised, the previous caller raised the issue of why those particular protesters were arrested as opposed to other protesters who had the scene. Now, Sean, the police are in the middle. It's a balance. So we are trying to allow a peaceful protest in favor of your constitutional rights and balance a protest at the same time, which is under an SOE. So we may give leeway, we may allow. So we are seeing us allowing the protests. You're seeing us asking persons to behave themselves and to abide by, proper standards and whatnot. And the senior person at the scene at that time, from what I saw, was Assistant Commissioner of Police, Sean Henry. And I think that he was the one who arrested Jason X, if I'm not mistaken, right? Then you saw, so it's about strategy as well. So you have a group of persons protesting, and you want to quell the situation.
Right.
So you have discretion, but you also have to do something.
If you start arresting too much people, it could cause
it could be more chaotic. So
right.
And you might arrest the person who is more vocal, deemed the leader. So Mr. Abdullah may not have been the leader. He may have just been a bystander. He might just have been part of the process. There are a number of persons that could have been arrested, but they decided to take this action. So the more senior person, which is a senior officer at the scene, decided, listen, let's take the person or arrest the person who we are directing the instructions to.
Yes.
You are the leader. I deem you the leader. I'm deeming you the leader. I'm telling the entire crowd to disperse.
You have displayed behavior to say you have some degree of control over the situation.
So that's the decision that may have been made. I'm not sure. I wasn't there.
So there's a flip side to that, and I'll try and be brief. Because arrest could be counterproductive, right? One of the issues is you're kind of fighting against negative police perception. And this is not just, oh, we want to be liked. This is practical in the sense of you need the people to trust you moving forward, not just in this, for this issue, but for all issues, right? You need the help of the public. So arrest could be counterproductive, but then also there have been at times some activists, I think they want to be arrested.
Yeah,
because it will advance the narrative. Right?
Yeah, because.
So, all right, I'll end that there because there's a couple other things to get to, but we're way over time. We'll try and take this call, very, very brief call. Good morning, you're on the air?
Yeah, good morning. I just want to invite the caller go, right?
Yeah.
Protesting is not lawlessness. Protesting is not breaking the law. Maybe how you protest might be that. And many of the benefits that people are enjoying today and we are enjoying in this country, even the privileged people, is as a result of protests.
Yeah, correct, yeah.
Right? I just wanted to make that point. So I disagree with the caller before.
Okay. No, thank you, caller. I think thank you, caller. We don't have time, but basically I think, to be fair to the previous caller, it's within the context of an SOE and all of the other things. So he is seeing...
And he's talking about zero tolerance from the beginning.
Yeah. So I understand what you're saying, and that's why I think it is right for the public to not just necessarily accept, well, no, right? It's not saying that, break the law in a sense, but if you want to push the limits, be prepared to face the consequences, because there are legal limits to this whole thing, right?
Yeah, and it may get chaotic, it may get out of hand, and the police may have to take action. Whether the police action is warranted or even legal is a different issue.
Right.
Because you could take up that after, and the police may act.
And we always say, listen, the time and place to fight the police is not physically there. It is in the courts based on whatever the laws are, what is reasonable or unreasonable, what have you, right? Now, just to say quick, with regards to the maxi taxi drivers, some of the things, again, we don't have time to get into it, but with regards to crime, they didn't necessarily specify what it is.
Right,
I don't know how easy it would be to solve those kinds of issues.
The issue, most of the issues is basically violent crime, like the robberies and whatnot, that they have. I'm not too sure it amounts to larceny where people don't pay for fees. I mean, you can't expect the police to be there and in the maxi when it happens.
Every time,
But, if there's more proactive work that the police could do to limit the amount of robberies, I'm not too certain how much there is.
Now that the maxi, because the PH driver system is a free-for-all.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things is now we're seeing it's a detriment to other parts of the transportation system. That could be, I've said this before, an area where, look, we are lawless because it's illegal, but we just, the government turns a blind eye to it.
Well, yeah, and then culturally you see people more accepting of like ride share and Uber-like.
Which I guess
which is illegal. Right. No, it's basically illegal because you're taking a private vehicle to hire it for, so it's basically PH.
The thing is, nothing but PH operates in certain areas at night, so Now, with that said, I'll end with this, the situation with the Piarco Airport. First of all, don't think the caller from Chaguanas is giving a wild statement about Christopher Columbus. Neil deGrasse Tyson has a lot of respect for Columbus's accomplishments. You might think, oh, well, somebody eventually will have done it. When you consider what he did, let's go west, and we don't know if we're going to get food and water, right, before we run out and then die on an ocean, because technically, we don't know. Yes, Vikings, it said, did it before. We don't know who's done it before, and we're taking a route that's probably not as safe, right? So it was an accomplishment. And you can acknowledge the importance of the accomplishment in history, and you can't necessarily erase that as much as you might dislike the guy and what he did to the Amerindians and what have you. So changing names, but I think with regards to Piarco, we don't have to go into that level of the debate. The thing is, I don't have an issue with when they change the name of Crown Point International Airport to ANR International Airport. Because on one hand, Crown Point, the area is named Crown Point, right? The area is named Crown Point after the monarch, right? It's still named Crown Point, right? But if you want to commemorate a historical Tobago politician and name the airport after him, fine. But I think Piarco is not tied to colonial times. Piarco is not as neutral, right? Or in some cases, negative. Right? And more importantly, I would imagine if I was Basdio Pandey, I wouldn't mind not being associated with Piarco Airport moving forward. Because there were court matters over that, where people got found guilty of certain things, where people still owe money based on whatever fines that they had to pay. Basdio Pandey himself had to pay a fine. So the problem is, it looks like you're trying to reward unethical behavior in a racially motivated way. Which potentially, listen, it doesn't matter if that's what it is. What matters is that's how it looks. Because then the divisions, the people will perceive it a certain way, and that perception will drive the divisions further, wider apart, right? So this is one of those things where you might be overextending yourself and might not fully understand all the implications of what it is you're asking for. Because if it was Queen Elizabeth's International Airport, all right, fine. Okay, I understand. But it's not. So now we have members of the indigenous population saying, listen, Piarco is not just a random town name that some colonial officer just assigned that has no meaning whatsoever. And on some level, it's been named Piarco for my entire life, and as far as I'm aware, the history of the airport. You have to have a really good reason to change it. Just that cosmetic changing it for the sake of change as a vanity project.
I didn't realize Piarco was an indigenous name.
Neither did I, but I mean, you know, even if it isn't, on some level, changing the name of something, why? Especially when the person whose name you want to put on it, notoriously, this is the thing that was his downfall. I don't know if you really want to have that long term.
I didn't realize that was the intention, though.
With regard, what? With the
renaming?
No, I don't think it's intended as an insult. I think it's intended as an honor, but...
Yeah, I understand, but the renaming itself, I didn't realize that was the intention to rename it.
Or to rename it Basdio Pandey.
Yeah, I didn't know.
I myself, only when you call a call, and I don't know if that's necessarily the best thing in the long run for Mr. Pandey's legacy. I'm just saying, you know, that's like renaming the TTT. Anyway, let me not go there, right? That's like naming something after the coup, but let me not go there. Folks, thanks to all the callers. I understand the passions of all the issues. Hopefully the maxi taxi strike, we're going to have day 2 and 3 in the next couple of days. If it goes on as planned, please adjust accordingly. Business owners, please adjust accordingly. It's going to potentially, yes, do harm to the economy, but on some level, I don't always like this phrase, but you can't make an omelet without cracking some eggs. And if you're not willing to sacrifice something, we protested for other things before. You can't tell people on some level, you can't, you know, force the issue if it's not being addressed, right? The question is, are we addressing these things well enough before it reaches that point? And I guess in the case of the police, in this one matter, the answer to that for some people is no. For the maxi taxi drivers, the answer to that is no. For a certain councillor across the floor, apparently, a certain alderman, the members of the UNC, the answer is no. Which protest is more worthy during a state of emergency? This is why state of emergency in the long run, maybe the opposition has a point. Can't always be wrong. With that said, thanks, Chris, for joining me once again.
Yeah.
I don't think we have any comments. I apologize. Somebody commented on Friday. I won't go back to it now because we're over time, but I apologize to the comments. So this is talking about WSN Connect Capital. Stay safe. Have a good day. Remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other. Don't forget, it's nice to be nice, even with people you disagree with. We'll see each other tomorrow. Bye-bye.
WESN.